Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss the Pluribus series, which is Apple TV. You can find it on that platform, but I'm going to make the really quick review or something for just, episode 1, 2, 7, 8. So let's talk about Carol Storka, the main character of this TV show, Pluribus. And basically, Carol Storka, she is a successful author of best-selling Winds of Waikaro series. So basically, her girlfriend Helen is as well working with Carol. She is helping her with this tour. They are basically coming home from this tour, and this is their last stop. But let's make real introduction of Carol. So in the Pluribus series, Carol Storka, in the 2025 series Pluribus, Carol Storka is a highly successful author of Romantasy Winds of Waikaro series. So basically Romantasy, it's fantasy romance genre, and the Winds of Waikaro, it's her creation, which was inspired by her own, let's say, experience. And this is really important about this TV show because it's all just, interconnected. And on this tour, basically fans were asking her what or who inspired her to write about a character Raban. Character Raban is a pirate who is basically sailing ships, and of course he is a male protagonist of her book, but she is basically hiding the real inspiration for this character Raban, because she basically doesn't want to reveal that Raban was initially a woman. And basically in her book, Blood Song of Waikaro, she represents this character. She introduced this character Raban as a male because she didn't want to alienate that specific audience, who would not basically want to see him as a woman or something like this, or she didn't want to reveal her own relationship, her private life, because she is married to a woman, which is Helen. So basically she is keeping this character Raban, initially being a woman, as a secret. She keeping this secret, and she is keeping her private life a secret as well. She's not going to reveal neither her private life, being married to a woman, nor her character Raban from her book was initially a woman. But the real inspiration of that character Raban basically originated to her own experience, herself probably, because basically her wife Helen, she's trying to kind of, encourage Carol to publish her secret book, her unpublished one. And basically that unpublished book is something like Carol didn't she wasn't really ready to publish it, but her basically wife Helen encourages her to reveal that book. But the reason why Carol wasn't really ready to publish something like so personal, because that other book they are talking about, it reflects on Carol's trauma from her childhood. To be more specific, her experience when she was at conversion camp. If you know what conversion camp is, you understand what I'm talking about. But if you don't, conversion camp is still existing, unfortunately, but a conversion camp is a place where basically people trying to basically change you and make you a person you're not supposed to be. They are trying to make your identity or something like this. But for her, it was a big trauma. She, of course, reflects on that experience in her book. And as far as I understood, this is exactly the reason why she didn't want to reveal that book, publish that book. But, of course, her wife, she basically telling that people would love it, but she actually lied to Carol. She did tell that people would love it, but she didn't tell that she loved that book herself. Basically, Helen lied to Carol because Helen knows Carol's insecurities. She didn't tell explicitly that she didn't love her book, the unpublished one. And later on, it's revealed that she didn't even love that much her other book, which is successful one, the Blood Song of Waikaro. And after they discussed Carol's books, they were basically reading the reviews on her recent book. And during that basically conversation, they just noticed these trails of planes in the sky. And basically this was the exact moment when the initial infection spread it, and all the people basically in this city, which is Albuquerque in New Mexico, and everybody basically in this city who inhales this is getting infected. So this is something like initially didn't seem as something obviously, against humans, but later on it's revealed that basically that was the first attempt to infect all the people, because some type of virus was basically discovered by scientists, and I'm going to reveal all the information little by little, because I'm not going to just talk about all the stuff right now. So basically, her wife, Helen, she was infected by that virus, airborne virus, and she basically fell. And after Carol, shocked by this accident, trying to save her wife's life, she resorted to any means necessary to keep her alive. She basically drove her wife to a hospital, but it was too late. At this point, her wife basically took too much damage from that fall, and basically by coming to that hospital, she also wasted the time basically by driving her to that hospital, and she realized that it was all just for nothing, because any possible hospital or any place where she could have potentially saved her wife, all the city in general just infected, or at least it seems like all the city in chaos. There is no place where she could potentially just take her wife and save her life. So she lost basically Helen after that accident, after the initial outbreak of that virus. But in season 1, of course, in Pluribus episode 2, we got introduced another character who is gonna be the replacement for Helen, Carol's wife. And this is literally replacement. This is not just, to put another character and to replace that character. It's literally what basically the hive mind is the one basically single mind that basically manipulates billions of people simultaneously across the world. All infected people, they share memories, they share knowledge, they share all the information, all their experience, and it's called hive mind. They basically do all the stuff like they do all this stuff like regular people do, but their initial goal basically is not just to conquer the planet, just to kill all the people. Their initial goal was just to, in contrary, save the resources, save the planet, animals. They didn't want just simply to conquer this planet of Earth. They wanted actually just to make all the people on this planet to be united by one mind, which is hive mind, and to share all the experience, all the information, all the memories, with all the people existing. And even though basically a lot of people died after that outbreak, 13 persons were basically not infected by that virus. They are immune, or at least there is no explanation of why they were not infected by that virus. And this woman basically, who is initially appearing in Morocco, Tangier, she is gonna be a person whom Carol imagined when she was writing her book. She initially made up that character Raban from her book, The Blood Song of Waikaro. She imagined Raban to be a woman, and this woman looks exactly like this character whose name is Zosia. So basically Hive Mind, which is billions of people across the world, technically all the people excluding those 13 persons and Carol herself, that Hive Mind basically got access to all the memories of all the people, of course, and they got the memories of Carol's wife Helen as well. Once she got infected, they already knew that basically Carol was a lesbian. She basically was married to Helen, but she kept it a secret. And by knowing that information, that private information, they using this woman to make Carol basically, to make her lean towards cooperation with Hive Mind, to make basically Carol more comfortable, let's say, because this is the exact woman Carol imagined when she was writing her book. So let's say this is your dream woman, a type of woman Carol would really love to see in her book, but she preferred to replace that character in her book by a male character, Raban, because for commercial reasons she thought that it would be better to make Raban a male protagonist rather than a female protagonist. But Hive Mind, they know that she initially imagined Raban as this woman. Raban looked exactly like Zosia, who is basically flying from Morocco, Tangier to Albuquerque to see Carol and to introduce herself to Carol. So while Carol was basically burying her dead wife, Helen, Zosia was already coming to Albuquerque. She already basically landed at Albuquerque's airport, and she was changing her basically, cloth. And the way she appeared initially, it seemed like she is some type of, homeless person, or at least it seems like, she was a captive woman, or it doesn't seem like a normal just person in general. But in this TV show, basically, there is no such a thing as, like, if we're talking about hive mind, they basically using all the bodies of billions of people, but they using them to get access to that information, to share that information, and they basically acting on behalf of billions of people, but what they say and what they do, it's all synchronized, it's all just orchestrated as a one singular person. I don't know how to explain this, but basically they are like one person, but they share all the memories and all the knowledge of billions of people from all the countries across the world. For example, Xerxia appeared at Carol's door. She introduced herself as Xerxia, but she refers to herself as individual, and she talking about herself as individual, not as she is Xerxia. She is saying basically this individual is Xerxia. This is how they introduce themselves, because they technically just use those bodies of those individuals, but right now basically Xerxia appeared as all the people across the world, but talking from that one body. This is how it works, but I'm not good at explaining that. So basically, Xerxia was that dream woman of Carol from her book, The Blood Song of Waikaro, which is Raban. Of course, she looks exactly like that person, but female version of Raban, let's say, the initial version. Carol, of course, she recognized that immediately, but at this point, basically, she was so preoccupied with, she was so upset, and she was so busy with burying her dead wife, Helen, and technically Xerxia arrived to introduce herself to Carol and to make Carol, comfortable, and potentially to turn her into one of them, into hive mind, to join them basically. Because the joining process, when all the people basically synchronized, when they joined that hive mind, it was initially where basically it was at that bar when they basically saw the planes in the sky, and when basically everybody got infected. After that, all the people, they got basically synchronized, and they talking and they sharing all the memories of each other. And basically Carol and other 12 persons who were not infected, they are not sharing any of those memories, any of the information basically with all those billions of people. But Carol immediately recognized this woman, Xerxia, as the resemblance of her literal character, Raban. She just basically grabbed her book and she immediately just made this comparison. And she basically freaked out about how personal this is, to use her dead wife's memories to make Carol cooperate with this hive mind, or at least to not alienate her, to make her basically a part of it. They use this personal sensitive information which only Carol and her wife knew about that character Raban, that initially he was a woman, it was her. And now basically Xerxia, technically she is that character Raban, but she is representing hive minds. And there is a little detail about hive minds. Hive minds, as I told you, it's billions of people, and technically Carol talking to billions of people, all people left on this planet, but the only person who can feel physically all the harm, everything around, the only physical body that can feel it is this exact body right now, because even though all the people, all billions of people share information and knowledge and memories with each other, they cannot feel that physically, they cannot experience that, they cannot sense, touch. And basically, when Carol freaks out, she basically makes it unbearable for Xerxia to take that, aggressive emotions, to take that anger from Carol. This information, this little detail, this like something that makes Xerxia or anybody else who join basically hive mind, those aggressive emotions towards them makes them like passing out or something. They just freeze, They cannot just take those aggressive emotions from Carol or anybody else, apparently from persons not infected by that virus. So she explained, Carol, that basically it's just too much to take those type of emotions. This is why they are passing out like this. And basically those moments when they freeze, when they just stop talking and literally freezing, those moments basically they occur throughout the season multiple times. And they can basically talk to each other. even though connection between hive minds, between all the people joined hive minds, which is billions of people, the connection between them, it's unconscious. It's not like radio. It's not like they are just, consciously talking to each other in their heads or something. It's more complicated than this. I'm going to explain this later, but I'm not sure if I'm able to explain that, but I will try. So basically, after Carol got to know better about this hive mind and who Zosia is, and why basically she knows this sensitive information about Carol's character from her book, which nobody knew before, but she got basically an explanation from Zosia, and after that a lot of happened, but I'm going to skip like 4 or 3 episodes right now because there was just too much and a lot of characters involved, but I'm going to skip that part just because I'm going to keep it about Carol and Zosia only. So let's talk. Let's say a lot of happened, including Carol was rejecting any offer from hive minds. She rejected any help from hive minds. She was trying to push them back. She was trying to kind of get to know better what they are. She was trying to understand what their goal is, what they do, what they eat. And she kind of conducted her own investigation, but they were able as well to kind of sweeten her attitude, let's say. They were able to kind of find a way to kind of please Carol, but she is not that type of person who can be pleased in a way that other 12 persons, not infected persons. She is not basically that easy to please as those 12. And basically hive minds and Zosia herself, they were trying to come up with a lot of treatment for Carol, including basically Carol and her wife Helen's signature food, like something that basically they ate at their anniversary or something like this. So they knew exactly what they ate, what they basically talked about, and they knew all the ways to make it exactly as it was before her wife died. So they made this treatment specifically like this because they wanted basically to make Carol to join hive mind, but they still don't know how to basically make her a part of them. They still don't know if there is a way to make her infected, or in other words, to make her join those billions of people, because they see this as a way out of her situation. They don't see this as they are the problem. They see this as she is just an exception, including all 12 other people, they are just exceptions from hive mind, from billions of people joining that hive mind. So they wanted basically those 13 people, they want to make them friendly towards hive mind. They want to make them basically potentially join hive mind. So they treat Carol in the best possible way. They came up with this signature dinner or something like this from your wife's memories. They gained that information from Helen's memories about what type of food they basically loved when they were together. But Carol kind of told them herself that she wanted this night to be like this, specifically because this is like their anniversary, and she specifically asked for this place because this is the place, or this place just similar to that exact place where they were together with your wife at their anniversary, or at their first, I don't know, date. And let's say basically 48 days since that infection, since the initial outbreak, and during basically 48 days a lot of happened. Carol was basically kind of going back and forth. She was not ready, of course, to cooperate with hive mind. She was the reluctant person out of all those 13 persons. She was the most reluctant, and she was trying to find a way out of this. She was trying to find a way how to make a world, how to make everything the way it was before this outbreak. She was basically trying to understand why it happened in the first place, but nobody else was trying to help her out of all those people who were not infected as well. Carol is the only one who is trying to basically reverse everything. And after basically hive mind, and Xerxia as well, she is a part of that hive mind, they basically pulled all the people from this city to make this impossible for Carol to gain any information or to access any secret information about turning everything back to the way it was before this outbreak. Because Carol was so insisting on getting to know how she can basically reverse everything. And she was so close to finding out. And as a countermeasure, they basically moved all the people from Albuquerque to another city or wherever, but they basically left out Carol, and they stopped any possible interaction. They stopped any possible connection for Carol because they didn't want Carol to get to know that information or to make hive minds, to make those people who joined hive minds freak out, to make them freeze like that. That convulsion, when they are starting to basically shake, that convulsion, it's triggered by those emotions, those aggressive emotions from persons like Carol, because she cannot just hold that. And once basically she found out that basically this is the exact reason why people who join hive mind, they start to shake like this, convulse, She realized basically that being alone, it's way worse than being surrounded by brainwashed people, which is hive mind, people basically who trying to please Carol, who talk on behalf of billions of people, but who acting in unison, who technically cannot lie. They cannot lie. They always tell the truth, no matter how terrible the truth is. They basically have to tell the truth. They cannot lie. In this TV show, this is what Carol found out about this hive mind. And since she knew that they cannot lie, they kind of used this against them to find out the way to reverse everything, to make that virus just, to find a cure against that virus. She was using any possible information she gains by interacting with this hive mind. And since she is so good at observation, her deduction allows her to basically find those details, and she found like all the important information about hive minds, and she gathering that information to finally come up with some type of cure. So of course hive minds, their goal is technically to make Carol join them, to make other 12 persons join them. So they are doing anything, literally anything, to make this possible, because Carol, she's so reluctant. But since Carol cannot resist one thing, after 40 days of loneliness, Carol realized that basically she needs people from her city back. She needs people from Albuquerque who left Carol alone, literally just alone in the whole city. She needs all them back. And she requested that specifically, since she was isolated by hive minds for that specific reason, because she was going too far with trying to get to know how to reverse everything back. And they kind of made it look like they were still cooperating and trying to help her, but in reality, basically they isolated her and they made it impossible for Carol to interact with anybody because nobody left in the city a part of Carol. And they even recorded a message for Carol every time she calls to Hive Mind. Technically, wherever she calls, she reaches Hive Mind because any number she calls leading to billions of people joined by one mind, by Hive Mind. So every time she calls anywhere, Hive Mind just answers. So technically, every time she wants something, she calls Hive Mind, she asking something, she requests any type of food, anything she wants, and it's getting delivered to Carol. But this time she requested everybody from Albuquerque, everybody from the city come back. She wanted a normal, or not a normal, but she wanted basically to be surrounded by people, even though brainwashed people, technically zombies or something like this, but she wanted everybody back because after 40 days of isolation or of being alone, she realized that she needs Zosia and all other locals from this city back. So she painted this basically message, which is come back. And due to basically Hive Minds and their surveillance, they using basically Air Force drones to observe every move of Carol, to spy on Carol. Technically, they use Air Force drones, and they use not only those drones, they use any possible weapon or, let's say, surveillance available in this world. They use everything because anybody at any place joins anybody working on, anybody basically who is behind those weapons. They united by the Hive Mind. They just joined once, and now they basically acting as one singular person. But they're using billions of bodies of all the people across the world. So this is how they sleep. They technically saving on electricity. They considering this type of, they considering like this type of place, like stadium or something, is more, I don't know, it's just saving on electricity. They are taking care of not only resources, but they want basically to put everybody in places like this, and there is no such a thing as ownership. There is no private property. they do not eat normal food as well. They sleep all at places like convention stores, convention centers, stadiums, big places, saving on resources. They as well eating a protein derived from people. Technically they eat dead bodies. They eat dead people, but they derive protein from dead people. And that derived protein, it looked like, milk or something. They basically making this as just milk. So they make it as some type of powder, and they mix that with a liquid. But this is for the information basically was already available not only to Carol but all other 12 persons. They already knew that basically the hive mind, all the people joined hive mind, they were basically eating dead people. They were eating those, and they were deriving the protein from their bodies. So, and this basically information was only shocking for Carol because other persons, let's say not all of them, but some other persons, they didn't freak out about that information, because it seems like less of a problem since they do not eat or they do not kill to eat. They cannot even pick an apple from the tree. They cannot even kill an animal, a fish, anything. Hive mind basically not only saving on resources like electricity, but they cannot basically touch the nature. They cannot intervene in, the natural food chain, or what is called. They cannot basically kill or do any harm to nature. But they can technically use and they can recycle dead bodies for that protein. So they derive that protein from corpse. And as terrible as it sounds, they trying to kind of rationalize this. They trying to kind of justify this, because by doing that, they just making it seem like they are actually taking care of the planet. They trying to save on resources, and they are trying to recycle like corpse. There is no garbage because they do not eat normal food, but for Carol, it all just seemed too much, because as much basically as reasonable all that sounded, she basically seemed that as crazy and extreme measures from Hive Mind, even though they told like they actually just taking care of everything. It seemed more like they were trying to kind of, I don't know. For her, it seemed more like of a, you know, too much, actually. But at some point, Carol and Zosha, they were trying to find a way to make Carol more chill. They knew that basically Carol, she is not willing to join Hive Mind anytime soon or never. Carol was trying to kind of get to know better any information on Hive Minds, what they are doing, what they are trying to do, and what they will do after they find a way to infect others, like Carol, for example. So she found out that they built in some type of giant antenna. They using all power in the world to send some type of signal to space, and they want to pay forward to some other planet. Apparently they know about their origins, and they are trying to kind of send that signal to another planet called Kepler 226. So this is what she found out, that some type of planet, which is 640 light years from the Earth, is the place when they originated. That Hive Mind came from that planet, or at least that virus came from that planet. I could be wrong, but the origins of this virus, initially it came from a laboratory where they basically they were taking experiments on rats, and initially that virus came from a laboratory rat, and that rat basically it bit one of the workers. So initially it came from that rat, but later basically people at the laboratory and everywhere, all the infected people, they started to spread that virus to the point that they used basically planes to just spread it. And now basically Carol and other 12 people who are not infected by this virus, they basically all from different places, even different countries. And at some point they met and they were trying to kind of find a way out of the situation, but only Carol really cares about reversing everything back. All other people and some certain person they exploit all the benefits or the perks of being not being infected by this virus and technically being pleased by hive mind, because they can use hive mind in any possible way. They can go wherever they want. They can eat wherever they want. They can technically be with whoever they want in any possible way, intimate or just friendly way. They can be with anybody, because all other people, billions of people, they basically acting on behalf of that hive mind, and their only goal is to please those 13 people, including Carol. This is why they rebuild this very place where basically Carol started her writing career or something like this. She basically was going to this place when she started writing, and that place burned down. This place was closed. It has been closed for so long, but hive mind, they rebuilt this place specifically for Carol, because after gaining some memories from her girlfriend, from her wife Helen, apparently they knew that this very place could potentially make Carol less aggressive and more open to communication with hive minds, to cooperation with them. They even dragged the exact waitress that was working at the time when Carol was going to this place, when she was coming to this place, this diner. This waitress was working, and it was like a favorite person working at this place for Carol. So she immediately recognized her, but it is just too much that they dragged that person from completely different state or something like this. They dragged that person from another life, let's say, and they put her in this role just to please Carol, to make her comfortable again in this diner, to make Carol feel like she is at the exact place she was back then when she started her writing. Hive mind as well wanted Carol to start writing again, because apparently it would make her less stressful person, I think. So Xerxia, she used this move by bringing Carol to that diner. She was trying to kind of make Carol, relax, to focus more on her writing, not to think about reversing back everything. They don't want Carol to find any information that would expose a weak spot of this hive mind. They don't want Carol to find out anything that could potentially reverse everything back. So they keep Carol busy by sending this individual, Xerxia. They using Xerxia's body because she resembles Carol's dream woman, her imagined character from her book. Again, she made up this character when she was writing her book, and they chose this particular woman, this particular individual, because she looks like that person from Carol's book, which is Rabban. And since Carol made Rabban a male protagonist because she didn't want to make them, she didn't want to make her audience, or apparently she didn't want to alienate regular audience. So for commercial reasons, she made Rabban a male protagonist. But she knew that basically Xerxes and Hive Mind, they use all that information, all that memories of Carol's wife Helen. They make all these moves, bringing her to the diner, rebuilding the diner, making all that just to make Carol less aggressive towards Hive Mind. They want her to kind of agree with the idea that joining Hive Mind is actually a way out of this situation. It's not just the problem. It's not something that Carol needs to stop. It's something Carol needs to join. So they see that basically Carol cannot be approached. She cannot be approached in a way that would make her less of a defensive person, because her defensive mechanisms, they just do not allow Xerxes or any other person from Hive Mind to make basically any, success. But Xerxes found the only way to make Carol stop freaking out about Hive Mind and about being chased by Hive Mind, and to stop basically Carol freaking out, she used the exact, probably the only way possible. She used something like she could possibly access from Carol's wife's memories. She knew that Carol and her wife Helen, that her passed away wife Helen, they were together, and Hive Mind gained that information. They knew that basically the only way to make Carol finally melt, to make her not stressing out about this, the only way is to be as close as possible to Carol. So they use this exact moment, and even though this is physically Carol kissing Xerxes, Carol is being with billions of people put into this exact body, because billions of people acting on the behalf of hive minds, and they use this exact body of Xerxia because Xerxia is resembling Carol's dream person, her dream character from her book, or just that type of character she imagined when she was writing that book. So by sending this woman, they were trying to just straightforwardly make Carol melt and to make her communicate with hive minds and to break your defensive mechanisms. And it kind of worked finally, because she was able to get as close as possible to Carol. And after 40 or 30 days, like 40 days of loneliness, Carol couldn't really resist this because she was too long by herself. And by asking Xerxia to come back, and by reuniting with Xerxia, she made this moment to be exactly like this, because Xerxia and hive mind itself, they are using all the information, all the skills, all the memories from billions of people. They know exactly when and how they need to approach Carol. And they basically sensed, they knew exactly that this moment could be solved, could be managed only by this, because they can read Carol's emotions. They can read her, let's say, they can feel when she is getting goosebumps. They can feel when she is like freaking out, of course. They can use moves like this to make Carol finally stop being so stressful about everything. So after this successfully, after Carol and Xerxia spent nights together, Xerxia found out that Carol came back to writing, that night basically they spent together contributed to Carol coming back to writing, because she apparently felt something after that night, but it seems more like Carol found out that she needs to finally reveal and to reveal that secret, that her character Raban was initially a woman, and she is rewriting that history, she is rewriting that story, she is putting that change, and she is making him a female protagonist. Now Raban is a woman. Because after that night, apparently Carol realized that there is nothing to hide anymore. And ironically, she was basically sleeping just with one person, but that person, she was basically acting on behalf of billions of people. She has memories of billions of people. So she technically, Carol technically, emotionally, she was with billions of people sharing that night, but physically she was just with that individual, with that body of Zosha, because this is the embodiment of your imagined character from the Blood Song of Waikara book she wrote. So now she rewrote that book, or at least she put that character Raban as a woman, and she kind of introduced this new type of story to Zosha, and unless Carol's dead wife Helen, Zosha cannot lie. She cannot tell something she doesn't really think. She can only tell the truth. Since Hive Mind cannot lie, she told exactly what she think about, or what they think, what all the billions of people think about this book, about this new writing of Carol's. And they told that they really like it, and of course Carol knew that this is not a lie anymore, because in this scenario it's just impossible for Hive Mind to tell the false story. They just talking. They only telling the truth. And after that, basically Carol was trying to get to know better the real individual, the real individuality of Zosha. She wanted to find out who was Zosha before joining the Hive Mind, before that joining. She wanted to know basically Zosha's favorite food, what she was doing before, where she came from, and it turns out basically that Zosha is from Poland. She basically grew up in Poland. She remembers every little detail of her childhood, because apparently Hive Mind kind of strengthening that ability to remember in every little detail your childhood or any person's childhood. It seems like she remembers her favorite ice cream, mango ice cream from Poland, that basically she was getting from some man. She remembered all little details. And she was telling this story from her childhood. And this is really important moment, because when basically Hive Mind getting access to memories from Zosha, they only getting the data, that information. They can technically get any information from her childhood. They can basically tell that she loved mango ice cream, she lived in Gdansk, Poland, that she was basically, you know, they can know anything, but they cannot explain, or they cannot taste, they cannot feel, they cannot technically, basically, they only can tell you the information, but they cannot explain you, describe you the feeling of getting that mango ice cream. And when Zosha was basically reflecting on her childhood and on that ice cream, the real Zosha, the real person that basically was before joining Hive Mind, on 1 second, the real Zosha, apparently she took over her body. She came back for a little bit. It seemed like she remembered something that Hive Mind cannot understand, because Hive Mind cannot understand the taste of Zosha's favorite food, of the mango ice cream. They cannot understand the feeling of eating your favorite food. And when she was describing how good basically that moment was from her childhood, it kind of triggered the real Zosha, apparently, to regain control over her body, or at least it seemed like she came back from that hive mind, and for 1 minute or something like this, she froze. She was in this state, but it was enough basically to understand that something so personal, something so sensitive, something that is only can be understood by individuals' experience, like tasting food or something like this, it cannot be re-experienced by hive mind. It cannot be understood by hive mind. So, and this is why the real Zosha, she kind of returned for a minute, but it's still not explained in a way I would love, because I only got this from some type of, I don't know, public information on this TV show. But from watching this TV show, I didn't see that initially, that she was kind of talking about that ice cream and that information is so important. So if you want more information and more basically detailed information, consistent information, and if you need to find something like that would explain you everything in a way that I cannot explain, because I'm not really good at explaining sci-fi things like science or anything, but I was trying to kind of go through all the moments from episode 1 to 7, 8. So I skipped a lot of, but you can find more information on those episodes I skipped. And you need to read about this TV show, and you need to find something by yourself, because only this way you can really understand and you can see every detail from this TV show. So thank you for watching, and I'm sure after episode 9, which is the last episode available, I can make another video, because it's still not like completed and I'm still not sure about what's going on, because the TV show is so interesting, but too much details, too much information makes it just impossible to digest all at once. You need really just to rewatch something. You need to focus on the dialogues. You need to come back to initial outbreak to see maybe you missed something from there, maybe you need something from the beginning of the TV show. And when you can basically put everything together, you can see finally the whole picture. So this is what I'm trying to do. And I hope that episode 9 would basically put everything together, and that episode 9 will be as good as previous 8 episodes. So thank you for watching.